The touring coupes that had dominated the 70s downsized and started to fall from favor in the early 80s, in spite of, or possibly due to, their smaller dimensions. Ford's Thunderbird moved to the smaller Fox format for 1980, and although prices could start as low as $6,400, the Silver Anniversary Edition was closer to $12,000. It was only 200 inches long on a 108-inch wheelbase and weighed 3,200 to 3,500 pounds. V8s came in 4.2-liter 255 and 5-liter 302 with 115 or 131 horsepower for a low 19-second car with a top speed around 105. But sales were over 155,000. Chevrolet downsized the Monte Carlo 2 years earlier, and it received a minor facelift for 1980. It started between $6,500 and $6,800, was also 200 inches long on a 108-inch wheelbase, and weighed 3,100 to 3,200 pounds. Base engine was a 3.8-liter 229 V6, except in California where the 3.8-liter 231 Buick V6 was used, which could be had elsewhere with a turbo, while V8s included the 4.4-liter 267 and 5-liter 305, with up to 155 horsepower, making for a low 18-second quarter mile and speeds over 115 miles an hour. Sales for the year were just under 150,000. Buick's Regal of 1980 was a similar 201 inches long on a 108-inch wheelbase and 3,200 to 3,300 pounds, and priced from $6,500 to $7,200. Sales were 215,000. V8s included the 4.3-liter 265 or 4.9-liter 301 Pontiac, or the 5-liter 305 Chevy, leaving the 3.8-liter 231 V6 as the only Buick engine. When equipped with the turbo, it produced 170 horsepower, putting the quarter mile under 17 seconds and the top speed over 115 miles an hour. Pontiac's Grand Prix was $6,600 to $7,600 and 202 inches long on a 108-inch wheelbase, weighing 3,200 to 3,300 pounds, with sales for the year under 115,000, sharing its engines with the Buick but without the turbo option. In standard form, the 4.9-liter Pontiac 301 produced 150 horsepower for a low 18-second quarter mile, but a rare performance version bumped it up to 170 horsepower for just over 17 seconds and 120 miles an hour. Dodge replaced the Magnum with the smaller Murata for 1980, priced from $6,700 to $6,900. It was bigger than its competitors at 210 inches long on a 113-inch wheelbase and 3,200 to 3,400 pounds. Base engine was a 3.7-liter 225 slant 6 with 90 horsepower, and V8s were the 5.2-liter 318 and 5.9-liter 360 with 120 to 185 horsepower, putting it in the low 17s with a top speed of 125 miles an hour, while sales were under 35,000 for the year. The Chrysler Cordoba of 1980 was essentially a plusher version of the same car, costing $6,800 to $7,500, only 210 inches long on a 113-inch wheelbase, and 3,200 to 3,400 pounds, with a standard formal look or a sportier LS reminiscent of the classic 300. Offered with the same engines, the 318 was available in 120 to 155 horsepower tunes in the U.S., or with 166 horsepower in export versions, which was still only a high 18-second car with a top speed over 110. But U.S. sales were near 55,000. The XR7 was the formal coupe version of the Mercury Cougar for 1980, with prices starting over $7,000 and selling nearly $60,000. Like the Thunderbird, it was 200 inches long on a 108-inch wheelbase, weighed over 3,200 pounds, and used a 4.2-liter 255 or 5-liter 302 V8 with 115 to 131 horsepower. But it would soon add 6-cylinder models, starting with an 89-horsepower 3.3-liter 200 cubic inch straight 6, and then moving to a 112-horsepower 3.8-liter 231 V6. Although the Oldsmobile Cutlass Calais and Cutlass Supreme were just considered packages of the standard midsize Cutlass, they were formal coupe versions that competed in this segment and account for more than 75,000 of Cutlass sales for 1980, with prices around $7,100 to $7,200 and sized like its counterparts at 200 inches long on a 108-inch wheelbase, offered with a 3.8-liter Buick V6 or Chevy 5-liter V8, as well as Oldsmobile's 5.7-liter diesel and 4.3-liter 260 V8, both with 105 horsepower. While the downsized Oldsmobile Toronado started around $12,000, and sold less than $45,000 for 1980. It was 204 inches long on a 113-inch wheelbase and 3,700 to 3,900 pounds, and only used Oldsmobile engines, including the 5-liter 307 and 5.7-liter 350, in both gas and diesel versions, providing 105 to 160 horsepower. The Rocket 350 pushed the car to speeds over 115 miles an hour and a low 19-second quarter mile. Buick's similar Riviera was also about $12,000 and sold just under $50,000 for 1980, slightly longer at 206 inches on the same 114-inch wheelbase and 3,600 to 3,700 pounds. It shared the Oldsmobile 350 V8, but also offered the 3.8-liter 231 Buick Turbo V6, providing 170 horsepower, for a mid-17-second quarter mile and speeds near 120. The Cadillac Eldorado of the same year cost $16,000, but sold more than $50,000, making it the best seller of the three. Of similar size at 204 inches long on a 114-inch wheelbase, and weighing around 3,800 pounds, also using the Oldsmobile 5.7-liter V8s, or Cadillac's 6-liter 368 with 145 horsepower, for a low 19-second quarter mile and speeds around 110 miles an hour. Unlike other Mark Series Lincolns, the Mark VI was a little different from other Continentals when it arrived in 1980, even being offered as a 4-door. But the 2-door version was 219 inches long on a 114-inch wheelbase and weighed roughly 3,900 pounds. Priced between $15,000 and $21,000, power came from an 129 horsepower 5-liter 302, or for the first year only, an 140 horsepower 5.8-liter 351, which was good for 105 miles an hour and a low 19-second quarter mile. Chrysler revived the Imperial name for 1981 for its $18,000 coupe, selling just over 7,200 for the year. It was 213 inches long on a 113-inch wheelbase and weighed 4,000 pounds. The only engine was an electronically fuel-injected 5.2-liter 318, providing 140 horsepower, which moved the car through the quarter mile in just under 20 seconds to speeds just over 105. In Britain, the second series Bristol 603 carried into the early 80s, being 193 inches long on a 114-inch wheelbase and 3,900 pounds. It could be had for less than $30,000 and used a Chrysler 5.9-liter 360 V8 with 170 horsepower for an 18-second quarter mile and around 120 miles an hour. The Rolls-Royce Corniche was little changed, 204 inches long on a 120-inch wheelbase and 4,800 pounds, with prices starting over $100,000. The 6.8-liter V8 produced 170 to 200 horsepower, making it capable of a low 18-second quarter mile and a top speed near 115 miles an hour. For 1981, the Jaguar XJS gained a high-efficiency designation, still 192 inches long on a 102-inch wheelbase and 3,900 pounds. It was powered by a 5.3-liter 326 V12, producing 262 horsepower in the U.S. and 299 horsepower in Europe, where it could do a mid-15-second quarter mile and 155 miles an hour, and was priced the equivalent of $19,000, noticeably less than its U.S. counterpart. From Germany, the BMW 6 Series was 189 inches long on a 103-inch wheelbase and 3,300 pounds, and started around $30,000 in the U.S., offered in 2.8, 3.2, badged as the 633, and 3.5-liter versions, with 181 to 215 horsepower, for up to 135 miles an hour and a quarter mile in the mid-15s. The Mercedes-Benz SEC of 1981 started at $50,000 and was 193 inches long on a 112-inch wheelbase, weighing 3,500 pounds. It was offered in the 201 horsepower 380 or 228 horsepower 500 for a mid-15-second quarter mile and 140 miles an hour. The Porsche 928S arrived in Europe in 1981. The 928 was 175 inches long on a 98-inch wheelbase, weighing 3,300 pounds, and started at $39,000. The S added a 296 horsepower 4.6-liter V8 over the base 220 to 237 horsepower 4.4-liter for a 14-second quarter mile and close to 160 miles an hour. In Italy, the Lancia Gamma Coupe ran through 1984. It was 177 inches long on a 101-inch wheelbase and weighed about 2,800 pounds, offered as a 2000 with 113 horsepower or a 2500 with 138 horsepower for a high 16-second quarter mile and speeds over 120 miles an hour. From Japan, the second-generation Mazda Cosmo arrived in 1981. It was 183 inches long on a 103-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,500 pounds. Initially offered with a 2-liter inline-4 with 109 to 119 horsepower, or a 1.1-liter twin rotary, marketed as a 1.2-liter, with 128 horsepower, which made it capable of a 17-second quarter mile and speeds near 125 miles an hour. The Nissan Leopard Coupe replaced the Cedric and Laurel coupes in the class, and was part Maxima and part Skyline. It was 182 inches long on a 103-inch wheelbase and 2,400 to 2,800 pounds, offered as a 180, 200, or 280, providing 103 to 143 horsepower for speeds over 120 miles an hour and a low 17-second quarter mile. Toyota introduced the Soarer in 1981 based on the Supra. It was 183 inches long on a 105-inch wheelbase and weighed 2,700 to 3,500 pounds, being available in 2000 and 2800, producing 105 to 145 horsepower. But the segment would soon thin out even more as coupes in general were falling from favor, and luxury coupes even more so. So as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment below and like and subscribe.